everyone. Thanks for being here. So we're doing something a little bit slightly different today. In a little bit later in the morning, Rabbi Minkus will be leading us in a Torah study, and I'm not sure those of you can see at home that we actually have you on a monitor, so we'll be engaging in a good discussion together. Shabbat shalom. So we're going to begin with a nigun. It's called the Bina Nigun, and it goes like this. Second part. From the top. Shabbat Shalom. We will be mostly using Sidur Lev Shalem today as a change of pace, but I will announce pages in the Na'aseh V'Nishma prayer book, and at home you should have access to both of them. There's transliteration for more of the prayers in here. So we're going to begin with Birchot HaShachar on page 103 in the red Lev Shalem, and on page 2 in Na'aseh V'Nishma. Yeah, it's a slightly different order. Okay, we rise and we join in the melody in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sech bina להבחין בין יום ובין לילה. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני בצלמו Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani bar chori lai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael ya la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hokeah Ibi Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Mahavish Arumim Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Mahatir Asurim. We're on page 104. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Zokeh kefufim Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Rokah haaretz hamayim Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamechin mitzadeh gaver Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam She'asa li kotor ki Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Ozer Yisrael bigurai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Ozer Yisrael b'tiparai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hanoten haya'er koach We are seated, and we will continue with Psukei de Zimra. So you notice we're changing things up a little bit in terms of the service because there's no shortage of tefillot or melodies. So we're skipping some of the favorites that we do in Psukei de Zimra on a regular Na'aseh V'Nishma, but we're adding some different melodies, and we're going to be focusing a little bit more on Shacharit. So we're going to jump now to Baruch She'amar, which is on page 122 in Lev Shalem. You're going to have to help me. In the red book, and we're on page 5 in the Na'aseh V'Nishma Sidur. And this is really the opening prayer for Psukei de Zimra because it just has Baruch, 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 and the beginning of the service is all about praise and thanks and blessings. So we also have a new melody for you. Hi, Shabbat Shalom. And so we'd like to teach you the melody. So this is, spoiler alert, this is one of Rabbi Minkus's favorite melodies. He taught it to us, and when he taught it to me, I had no idea that it's actually an Iraqi melody. I wasn't able to discern that when I learned that from him. But then this past summer, I was in a seminar with a Mizrahi singer in Jerusalem, and she started singing this melody, and she's like, it's Iraqi, and it sounded so Iraqi. So when we do it, we're going to try to make it sound Iraqi. We might not like completely get it, but we'll teach you the nigun, and then we're going to add the words for Baruch She'amar on page 22. So here's the nigun. Oh yeah, we're going to start with a clap, like a Sephardic clap, Mizrahi clap. So we're going to go like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and now Chuck's going to start. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Here's the melody. Ya la la la, ya la la la, la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la. It's challenging, right? Ya la la la, ya la la la, la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, la la. Here's the second part. Ya la la la, la 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 la, ya la la la, la 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 la, ya la la, la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la la la. Beginning. Ya la la la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la. Let's rise. La 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 la, la la. Do the best you can. Baruch She'amar v'haya ha'olam. Baruch hu, Baruch hu. Baruch Yosef Reshit. Baruch Omer Yosef. Baruch Omer Shem. Baruch Merachem al haaretz. Baruch Merachem al habriot. Baruch Meshalem Zachar Tov Lireah. Baruch Ala'at V'kayam Lanetzach. Baruch Modeh Umatir. Baruch Shemo. La 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 la, ya la la la, la 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 la, la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Yeah, did that feel Iraqi to all of you? Rocky. So, yeah, so I don't know, Rabbi Minkus, I don't know if he was able to know what we were doing just there. Well, you missed your cue. No, not your cue for teaching, but that was a little surprise for you. We'll bring it back at the Kabsha project on December 17th or 19th, whatever date that is, okay? We were just practicing for you. One of your favorite melodies. So, okay, so Berchot HaShachar, we're going to continue now with Nishmat Kol Chai, which is not in the Nasa Mishma. It's in the supplement, transliterated, and it's also, it's good, Ed, and it's also on page 145 in our Siddur, and this is truly one of my most favorite tefillot. We sometimes skip it or we go through it very quickly, but Let's just look at the words in the Siddur for a moment. On page 145, it says, Nishmat kol chai, the soul of all that lives, praises your name, Adonai our God. The spirit of all flesh exalts you always. So it's kind of tying in when we first wake up and we say, Elohai neshama nata tabi, you gave us a precious neshama. And now we're extending it beyond ourselves and we're saying the soul of everything that lives praises your name. Nishma. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha. 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 Havaya, Havaya Eloheinu, Havaya, Havaya Eloheinu, Havaya, Havaya Eloheinu, Havaya, Havaya Eloheinu, Havaya. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha. 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 Havaya, Havaya Eloheinu, Havaya, Havaya Eloheinu, Havaya, Havaya Eloheinu, Havaya, Havaya Eloheinu, Havaya. And now we move on to Shacharit with Shochen Ad. On page 147 in our Siddur, page 7 in the Naaseh V'Nishma Siddur, page 8. In the middle of the page, and this is a newer melody for some of us. This is a melody by Joey Weissenberg. If you want to Google him or look for him on YouTube, he's really one of the most prolific composers of modern music, and he's got a very solid foundation. So what he did for this melody of Shochen Ad is he took the traditional melody, Shochen Ad Marom V'Kadosh Shemo, and he spread it out and made a new melody out of it, but it's based on that. So we'll teach you the melody, and then we'll add the words. You are exalted in the heavens. Yai lai lai, 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 yai lai lai. Second part, yai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai, lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai from the top. Yai lai lai, 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 lai lai lai. Shochen Ad, Shochen Ad, Maharon V'Kadosh Shemo. Shochen Ad, Maharon V'Kadosh Shemo. וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני וישרים נאווה תהילה שוכנת מהרום וקדוש שמו שוכנת מהרום וקדוש שמו. One more verse. בפי ישרים תתעלה ודברי צדיקים תפרח שוכנת מהרום וקדוש שמו שוכנת מהרום וקדוש שמו. So if you take a look at that paragraph in the Hebrew, the one that starts Befi Yesharim, you'll notice that the first letter of the second word on each line spells a name. So the first line, the word Yesharim starts with Yud, the word Tzadikim, Tzadi, the word Chasidim, Chet, and the word Kedoshim, Kuf. And what does that spell? Yitzchak. And we say goodbye to Yitzchak, our patriarch today, Isaac, in our Torah portion. So I just wanted to point out some of the secrets in our little G, and we'll sing one more time. Vilshon at the end of that paragraph. Vilshon Chasidim Titromam Ufkedev Kedoshim Titkadash Shochenan Maharom Vekadosh Shemo Shochenan Maharom Vekadosh Shemo. Page 148, we rise. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu Berachot vehoda'ot me'ata ve'ad olam Baruch ata Adonai El melech gadol batishbachot El hahoda'ot Adon הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלכי העולמים. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותי ועמלך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחייכו בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב, בימרו אמן. יהי שמי רבם ברך לעולם עולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה. Le'ela min kol brachata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechmata, daminan be'ahama, v'meru, amen. Page 149. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. We are seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. So another new old melody for us on page 150 in Sidur Lev Shalem. Right in the middle, really right in the middle, are the words Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim. It's transliterated on the supplement sheets. And it's a very, very beautiful sentiment. Really another phrase that we could spend all day talking about. So in Hebrew, it's Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. With kindness you illuminate the earth and all who dwell on it, and in your goodness day after day you renew creation. So we wake up in the morning, we look out the window, creation is renewed every single day. We have a new chance to experience life in the world around us. And so here's Josh Warshawski's Hameira, which we've done. Hopefully you remember it. It goes like this. Hum, ha, 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 try that with us. Hum, ha, ha, Hameira, 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 la'aretz v'ladarim aleha, v'ladarim aleha, v'ladarim aleha, v'ladarim aleha, berachamim. So for the second Na'aseh V'Nishma in a row, I have forgotten my talit on the hooks outside the bathroom. Would you mind grabbing that for me? I'm so sorry. Last time I ran out and I don't know, the Tech Gabbai people focused on the beautiful stained glass for a while waiting for me. So we'll see if this works a little better. Okay, we're continuing with El Adon, and we have a new melody for this too, right? Is it too much? Too much new? Never. Never. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, so this is, again, this is a melody, another melody for David Melech, so you'll recognize it, but let's do the nigun first so we get oriented. Lie, 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 Eladon al kol hamasim baruch borah Yivon neshama gogo v'tuvo malek olam da'at utmunaso v'imoto Hamikael chayot hakodesh v'nedar b'chavod Al המרכבה זה פוטו מישור לפני ניסו חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל כוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל מלאים בי עומדים כנוג הנאה ליבם לכל העולם שמחים בסלע ששים בבואם עושים מאימה רצון קונם פאר וכבוד נוגעים לשמות צהלה ורינה וקר מלכותו קרא לשמש ויזכור ראה והיא כצורת הבנה שבח נותנים לו כל טבע מרום תפארת וגדולה ספים ואופנים ספים ואופנים וחיות הקודש לי 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 So we continue with the Shema, preceded by the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava, page 155 in the red Siddur. And page 20 in 70 Shema. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. Continue silently. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונתנו על ציצית על כנף בתיל תכלת והיה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, amen. Continue with mi chamocha. Who is like you? Page 158 in the Red Siddur. We add Miriam's tambourine. Page 25. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'emim Adonai mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh Torah tehilot osef pele Torah tehilot osef pele Shira chadasha shipru ge'ulim Leshimcha al sfat hayam Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 לה. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ובטחי נאומך יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Begin the Amidah together. Page 159. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Koneh HaKol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לי, שני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים 161 נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב היד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה, ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקור רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנשאים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך? תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו, לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור, לדור ודור, ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה, תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. ועינינו תראנה, תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד, משיח צדקך. על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד, משיח צדקך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. נצחים ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש לדור ודור לדור ודור לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי אל מלך גדול כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה לדור ודור לדור ודור לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Continue silently. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom imromavu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom imromavu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom imromavu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Shabbat shalom. I think we're ready for some Torah. Rabbi Minkus, do you have any for us? Always. Always.
Everyone smile as big as you can at me. Thank you, Sherry. Aviva, very nice. Okay, because I did this a few weeks ago, and I heard from some of you that you enjoyed the study. To me, there was not a whole lot of energy in here, so I want to make sure that you're okay behind that mask. Thank you, Sarah. You can even pull it down for a second. If you're triple vaxxed, pull it down for 2 seconds. All right, Mary, I can see you smiling. Thank you, Mitchell. All right. Can I get a help? Thank you. Oh. Thank you. I printed out 40 of them pages. I hope you have it online. Yeah, I think so. All right. So, doesn't have the answers, does it? Okay. Yeah. All right, so I want to do I have a couple questions for us to think about. Okay? There's a lot of text in here, but I'm going to walk you through it, so don't worry. So just a little refresher on where we are up until this moment. We're Parshat Vayishlach. And our portion begins with Jacob preparing for his reunion. The Eitz Chaim puts its finger on the scale by saying confrontation, but let's go with reunion with his brother Esau. And they haven't seen each other in 20 years. Jacob and Rebekah deceived Isaac and stole Esau's birthright. That caused Jacob to flee his home because Esau was unhappy, and we know that Esau is very strong. We don't necessarily know that Jacob is weak, but we know that what he is known for is not his strength. And then he spent the last 20 years living outside of his homeland with his deceitful uncle who continued to trick him. And it was a long, hard 20 years while he married Rachel and Leah, or Leah and Rachel, and had children. He had to work really hard during those 20 years, and he just fled Lavan, that's his brother-in-law's home, and now that's where we are. Okay? So as you see, I'm interested in the idea of reunions. Anybody ever have a family reunion? And I don't mean like, all right, well, I'll just leave it at that. Family reunion, yeah. Adele, you've had it? Who else? Raise your hand. I know you have t-shirts. Okay, Meg, Martha. How were they? Adele was good. Martha was good. What made the reunion so good? And who was there?
So we had a reunion of my mother's father's siblings' descendants.
Mother's, father's, siblings, descendants.
So my mother was a Reiner, and there were 5 Reiner brothers, and it was all their children, and their grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And so these were second, third cousins. Many of them I have never met. Many of them I only met when I was 5 or 10 years old. Only a couple of them had I been in touch with. And it was breathtaking. It was great to meet people who are kind of like me, but very different. And to realize I actually liked many of them, which, you don't get to pick your family. So, and it was breathtaking because these were Holocaust survivors, and most of them were in Canada, and it was just amazing to see all of the accomplishments and the new lives everybody had. Oh, it was fabulous.
Wonderful. Thank you. Adele, do you want to say anything about your reunion? No. Anybody else have anything? Yeah, Lou. Sorry. I could do it.
I would say it was awkward. Parts of my family are as dysfunctional as any biblical family. And to see people I haven't seen in decades and to figure out, did you remember the last time we spoke, and, what's happened since, and do their children dislike us as much as they did? So there's lots of good moments too, but there's some of those.
Honestly, no, that's the perfect segue. I mean, that's how these things work. Things work or things don't. I'm not sure with family there's any in between. I'm young enough that I haven't really had any high school reunions yet, or not that I've gone to. And I haven't gone to my camp reunions yet. It feels too soon. But this Thursday is Thanksgiving. And some of us had Thanksgiving by ourselves last year. Make sure my parents aren't on. It was wonderful. And, but I'm sure, like me, that's not going to be the case this year. We're having Thanksgiving with my mother-in-law, and we have not seen some of them in over 2 years. So what's that going to be like? And so that brought me to Jacob and Esau. Here's a reunion. But then I took a step back and I was thinking about what's the deal with reunions in the Torah? Okay? Jacob and Esau, the text makes it clear that for some reason Jacob has to go through the land of Edom, where Esau is now really seemed to be king or the head of these lands. But why does the Torah make him do that? Okay, that's the particular question. But the larger question I want us to think about is, what do we learn from these reunions? Why is the Torah, or at least the book of Genesis, so keen on having these reunions? What does that teach us? What is the message that the Torah is trying to get across? And I also want us to think about a question that I asked a few weeks ago. Not whether or not we like Jacob, but what do we think of him in general? Do we think that this interaction that I'm going to read for us with Esau was genuine, true to who we want him to be, maybe? Or was he continuing to be, like his name, clever, maybe deceitful, just trying to get a leg up on his brother? Or does he really love his brother? And Rabbi Edwards this week gave a to our Torah about how the Torah has very little detail. And we have to fill in detail all the time. That's why the original form of biblical commentary is midrash. It's filling in the holes for the things that are not there. I think that's generally true, but I'm going to push and say that's not really true with Jacob. We know a lot about Jacob. We see him all over the place. We meet him 2 portions ago. I'm making this up, but I think that's chapter 25 of Genesis. And he goes all the way to 50. He continues throughout the whole story with his son, Joseph, his other sons. We know a lot about him. So I want us to think, and I'll ask you whether or not we think his interaction that I'm going to read here with Esau was genuine or he's just playing again. All right? So here's the portion begins. So Jacob sends messengers out. He knows that his brother Esau controls the land that he needs to travel through. So he sends these messengers out, and he's very clear. He says to them, "To my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I stayed with Laban and remained until now." Okay, he goes on. He's acquired a lot. He's gotten very wealthy. So 7, the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau. He himself is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him." 400 means that's a military regiment. That's a technical term in the Torah. 400 means that's a regiment, meaning tool up, as they say in The Wire, okay? He needs to arm himself, okay? Okay. So Jacob was greatly frightened in his anxiety. He divided the people with him and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 camps, thinking if Esau comes to attack, to one camp and attacks it, the other camp can flee, all right? Protecting himself. Okay, here Jacob repeats the blessing that he got when he was at first alone in the desert. Then Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your native land, and I will deal bountifully with you. I am unworthy of all the kindness that you have so steadfastly shown your servant. With my staff alone, I crossed this Jordan, and now I've become 2 camps. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. Else I fear he may come and strike me down, mothers and children alike. Yet you have said," I remind you again, "I will deal bountifully with you and make your offspring as the sands of the sea, which are too numerous to count." Okay? We don't need to talk about this, but he's reminding God. God is God. I don't know if God needs to be reminded once, let alone twice. So this is something, do we think that he's just trying to get through this, or he's really afraid and we would do the same thing? After spending the night there, okay, he sends goats, rams, camels, all this stuff on ahead. And he gave them to his servants, and he said, "Go on ahead, keep a distance between each drove," and said to them, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, 'Whose men are you? Where are you going? And whose animals are these?' you shall answer, 'Your servant Jacob's. They are gifts sent to my lord Esau.'" And Jacob himself is on his way. So he gave similar instructions to each of the servants, and again repeated what to say to them. And, he's thinking, if I placate him, perhaps he won't attack me, and he'll take these in the spirit that I'm giving them. Okay? The rest of chapter 32 is the wrestling with the strange being. If we have time, we'll come back to that. Okay? Here we go. Chapter 33. Looking up, Jacob saw Esau coming, accompanied by 400 men. Okay? So he divided up his family, and something that I really thought about for the first time here, or that I remembered, it's really stark. I've never been in the military. America at least believes of itself or strives to be a country where everyone is equal. It ain't equal in Jacob's family, okay? The servants go first, and then their children. His lesser wife Leah goes first, after that, then her children, and then Rachel, who he loves, and Joseph comes next. Benjamin, the other son of Rachel, is not yet born. But then, he does lead them, okay? So he himself went on ahead and bowed low to the ground 7 times until he was near his brother. Okay? The last time we saw Esau, Sarah was when? What was he saying? Aren't you going to bless me? Sorry. The last time we saw Esau, heart-rending scene, he comes into his father, who had sent him out to the field to get an animal sacrificed for him, make a meal, and then he was going to give him a blessing. He comes in. Isaac said, I already gave away the blessing. He says, don't you have a blessing for me? Even if we're not sympathetic to the Esau camp, it's gut-wrenching. Esau ran to greet him. He embraced him, falling on his neck. He kissed him, and they wept. Okay, now Esau plays, the goofy uncle at the reunion. Who are all these people? Who are these wives? Who are these children? Jacob answered, the children with whom God has favored your servant. Okay, and then everyone came and bowed to Esau, and he asked, what do you mean by all this company which I have met? Jacob answered, to gain my Lord's favor. Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Let what you have remain yours. But Jacob said, no, I pray you, if you would do me this favor, accept from me this gift, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God, and you have received me favorably. Seeing the face of God, that's like the blessing that the strange being gave to him, and he named that place Peniel, which means he received the face there, face to face. Please accept my present, which has been brought to you, for God has favored me, and I have plenty. And when he urged him, all right, I'll take it. And Esau said, let us start on our journey, and I will proceed at your pace. But he said to them, my Lord knows that the children are frail, and the flocks and the herds which are nursing are a care to me. If they have driven hard a single day, all the flocks will die. Let my Lord go on ahead of his servant, while I travel slowly at the pace of the cattle before me, and at the pace of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir. Okay, then Esau said, let me assign you some men so that you travel safely. But he said, oh, my Lord, you are too kind. So Esau started back that day on his way to Seir. But Jacob journeyed on to Sukkot and built a house for himself, and he made stalls for his cattle. That is why the place is called Sukkot. The only time that we get an explanation of what this word means, the only other time we see this word in the Torah, this is not relevant to us, but I think it's really cool and meaningful, is that Sukkot is actually the first place that the Israelites went to as free people. So when we say that Sukkot is what the Israelites dwelled in the desert, that may be true, it might not be. Okay? So, we have that story. I want you to talk amongst yourselves. You can look at these other reunion stories that I found here. You'll see in chapter 35, here, I'll just read it. Chapter 35, verse 27 is the other time that Jacob and Esau reunite at the death of Isaac. And Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre at Kiryat Arba, Nar Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned. Isaac was 180 years old. When he breathed his last and died, he was gathered to his kin in ripe old age, and he was buried by his sons, Esau and Jacob. Notice Esau is mentioned first. Okay, so I have the other reunion stories that I found. If you have other ones, please let me know, because I just found it fun thinking about all the different reunions. I put the reunions with Joseph and his brothers. And the first one I wrote was 1.5, because I actually think the first time that Joseph goes out into the field to see his brothers when they actually have the plan to kill him, I think that's actually a reunion of sorts. The first time Joseph's brothers come to the land of Egypt when there's a famine, Then when they come back with their brother Benjamin, and then when he reveals himself to them. And then the last one I found is when Jacob and Joseph reunite, and this very strange physical movement is brought in here, just like we read before, where Jacob and Joseph fell on their neck and kissed each other, all right? I tried to look this up to see if that was like a custom of the ancient Near East. Maybe it is, I don't know. I find it to be a little weird, like how do we do that? And are we supposed to gain something from that? Look through these interactions if you like. Talk to the person sitting next to you on Zoom. Try to just go in depth with yourself to think about what is the Torah trying to tell us about reunions. And I think this is the most significant reunion here, or at least up until this point. So what is the Torah trying to teach us about reunions? And do you think Jacob was being sincere with his brother, or he's just trying to emerge safely? All right, so take a few minutes to think about these. What is the Torah trying to teach us about reunions? Those on Zoom, you can use the chat to talk to each other.
Ben, I like your point about the one who's afraid, and maybe it teaches us that people change. I think we have to keep in mind that we change too.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that there's a intentional recognition on each side that there's been change, right? And maybe that goes into Esau as well. Like he could be bitter, right? He could be bitter that the birthright was taken. But instead he seems to approach Jacob genuinely. So maybe sometimes, it's like there might be an old friend or some old contact that we have that, we're worried we did something wrong to them, or maybe that the relationship fell off and we have a hard time coming back to it. But maybe we forget that maybe people are more open after a while. Could be another lesson.
I like your point. I would add that we only see the story through Jacob, but we see Esau coming with great power. And maybe he's coming angry, but I don't necessarily think so. I think we see that he has prospered in his life and is maybe perhaps wanting to welcome his brother and make a family again. So I think it's because we only know Jacob's voice. We're maybe more suspicious of Esau, but we don't necessarily have to be. And maybe you're right. When we come to our Thanksgiving table, we need to be open to the fact that, as Linda said, people change, we change, and coming with goodwill might bring us all back to a place where we would like to be, even if we don't agree politically.
I very much agree with what you.
I think they're both afraid. I think maybe that's why Esau comes with this large military force, afraid that Jacob, still wants to do him ill.
Okay. All right, so we're going to come back together. And by come back together, I mean eyes on me. Eyes on me. What does the teacher say? Eyes on me, mouth shut, or something like that? Okay. So let's do this. We'll ping pong back and forth, in-person people and Zoom. You can answer either of my questions, but the first person to answer will go with that line of questioning first, whether it's thinking about Jacob in general or reunions. Who wants to be the first? Sarah.
We've had a set of disagreements in this group.
Good.
But I had the advantage of of studying this parsha for Torah reading upstairs. And what strikes me are the couple of sentences after this grand reunion, and the couple of sentences where Esau says, come with me, we'll go together. And Jacob says, oh, the children are weak and the animals are nursing, and he gives him 1,000 excuses for why they can't go together. And he says, but I'll catch up with you in Seirah. And Esau goes on to Seirah, and Jacob goes in a different direction. And he has no intention of going to Seirah. And I think once again, he is deceitful. And once again, it's trickery.
All right, so I think that's a good place. Let's start with Jacob, and then I'm going to make you answer the question about reunions because I'm really interested in it. So let's start with Jacob. So yeah, I mean, one thing to think about is how the story ends. Jacob says, oh, it's been great seeing you, but you're going that way, we're going our way. But yes, he doesn't actually say that, but that's what he means. The kids are tired, no more fetching, the animals, it's been a long journey. I'm going with yours. I'm not saying that's what I think, but someone on Zoom? Someone on Zoom want to offer an opinion or nope? Okay, someone in person? We'll come back to you, Zoomers. Oh, we got one. Ben, go ahead, Ben.
I was just asking an opinion exactly on what, on Jacob?
Yeah. Do we think Jacob is genuine with Esau or continuing the trickery?
I mean, I do think, maybe there's a little bit of both. I think, one could argue it seemed like Esau was ready to back down, but at the same time, Jacob still insisted on giving a gift. So, then I would ask, why would he voluntarily give up those items if Esau seemed like he was ready to back down anyways? So I think that, maybe there was sort of Jacob genuinely wanted to give something, but maybe they didn't see something long-term. And maybe that's sometimes, maybe with reunions in general, it may be for a short time. It may not be a long-term reunion, but there's something powerful in the short term.
Great. So you're saying something about Jacob's character, but also about reunions, that there's something powerful in the moment, and it's possible that whatever is gained in that moment could be lost in the long term. Meg, someone on Zoom, and then Ed.
So I can't help but wonder if Jacob is meaning to outwardly project that he's, being magnanimous and giving away some of his bounty, but he's not actually assuaging his own guilt at having stolen his brother's birthright. Like, is he carrying that for life? And isn't that some of what we do at reunions? Sort of present keeping up with the cousins, but in reality, like, we're all still playing out the same childhood dramas into our adulthood.
Very nice. Keeping up with the Coneses. Someone on Zoom?
I'd like to.
It looked like you were unmuting. Did you have?
I would like to.
Oh, Natalie.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt anybody?
Go ahead.
I would like to speak up for Esau. We see this story through Jacob's eyes, and we're naturally suspicious of what Esau is bringing when he comes with such power. Alice mentioned that maybe Esau would have equally been afraid, not knowing what Jacob was up to, knowing his brother had been difficult or tricky. But he does come, I think, his greeting shows great love and brotherly affection. Whether or not it's going to be short-term or long-term, he's willing to show that he's apparently prospered if he comes with this many in his entourage. So I think if Jacob had been more open, they could have been more of a true reunion. But it was not, even though it was fraught apparently before Jacob met up with Esau. Apparently it was peaceful. Maybe our tables at Thanksgiving can still be peaceful, even if it is fraught with undertones.
Yeah, great. So, I mean, Esau continues to appear just a good guy who doesn't ask, disagree if you want. He appears to just be going about his business continually. And it's important, he doesn't know what Jacob has been up to these last 20 years. They've been bad years, but he doesn't know that. I said Ed.
So I recently, in 2019, attended my 50th high school reunion. And I was struck by the degree to which old tensions and separations among us in the class was apparent still 50 years later. And for example, I have always thought that Esau represented the vocational class kids at our high school. They were good at fixing cars, and they were really the ones you went to for metal shop questions, but you didn't have much association with them. And we were the collegiate kids, the college track kids. And so at this reunion, the groups were again together, and we were again kind of scoping each other out, not sure how we related to each other. And at one point, one of the greaser girls from the vocational track came over to my collegiate group that we were sitting there, and she said, "Can I be part of the smart kids for a minute?"
Oh, God.
Right? And it was adorable. And it was adorable. we had a conversation, and at one point, Debbie, was her name, she said, "Can we get together later on?" And we all said, "Well, yeah, we can kind of get together later on." So this was where Sarah Lovia and I had a kind of a difference of opinion in terms of what Jacob was doing relative to Esau, which is that, look, it was great to see Debbie, and it was wonderful to have this one conversation with her, maybe two, but not three. And I didn't say, none of us thought to say, "Debbie, we have nothing in common. We really don't want to spend any more time with you." But we said, yeah, that's a good thing to do, fully meaning that we would never do it, right? So I think there's that tension that reunions bring out, and how they challenge us and how we deal with those that we are related to, but we're not clearly sure why. And how is it that we traverse all of those tensions and separate and the aspects of our lives that are born from separation?
So, yeah, so, go ahead.
So you're convinced that Debbie didn't change in the however many decades, 50, and yet the other narrative is we want to believe that a sleep wrestling match and Yaakov changed, and we should give him credit for that. But if you're born in the vocational track,
I think that's a great question. When I heard Ed's, I heard it as just the flip side of what Sarah was saying, and it's not, there's a lot in the Jacob story about understanding, evaluating, questioning change. I think this is who you are, I'm projecting on your take, but we were never very close. We never played Playmobiles and Barbies together. We're not going to play whatever adult, we're not going to go have a round of golf. You go on to sit here. I'm not. Sarah's is, yeah, we'll meet you there. Sherry.
Sorry, it took me a minute to unmute. Well, I've been thinking about the fact that so much of what we do is performative. And what made me think of that is the most recent reunion I've been to is a memorial service for my brother-in-law who died last year. And it was very interesting in that my sister made sure that his family had center stage. And after there were two events, one was small and one was large. And after the first night, witnessing his daughter and his granddaughter being what I thought was very kind of cornily sad about his death. And this is people from his first marriage, which ended like 25 years ago. I was not surprised to find out the next day that my sister told us that everything they said was, to coin a phrase, bullshit. It was kind of funny, not funny, haha, but yeah, it didn't seem like they were genuine. And she was confirming it. But then the next day for the big event, she still gave them center stage. And I was telling a friend about this, and she said, well, she did the right thing. She was attending to her husband's memory and her husband's family. It was not his funeral, but his memorial service. And I thought, my kind of primitive approach to relationships, maybe it's the 70s kind of thing, is like, you should be honest about everything, very direct about everything, which sometimes gets me in conflict, as some people may know. And so I was thinking about this notion that of performance. How do we really know what's genuine and what isn't? And to what extent is some of the performance required for just peace and for social welfare, or even to live up to one's moral commitments, which is what I was thinking might be the case in this story. There's a moral commitment to be a good person, so you act a certain way. Anyway, these are all the thoughts that I had as I'm listening to the conversation.
Thank you. So Jerry introduced another aspect that is prominent, or can often be a feature of reunions and these kinds of stories, is legacy and inheritance, and who is not at that reunion, and how do we honor the person we want to be at that reunion, but also who is not there. Stephen.
My question is, what would we see if we decided that Jacob was sincere? I don't understand why that's the question. It's not because he bows down 7 times, he does all the things you do, he brings gifts, etc. But his brother shows up with nobody but a regiment behind him. His brother's and linear, and Jacob is spatial. His brother's a hunter, he shoots arrows. Jacob is a pasture man, a raiser of animals, a animal husbander. He's all in space. So I think, to me, the issue is, does Jacob adroitly get through this event? And I think he does a somewhat brilliant job of both reunioning with his brother and bringing his flock to a new home, having brilliantly figured out not to say goodbye to Laban, but to get the heck out of there. He has learned some things from Laban. You want it? Get it, take it. So I think the question is he remembering his initial post ladder to the sky discussion with God? Is he remembering the conversation in his latest wrestling match? And is he saying, finally, yes, God's said God would bring me through, but I've got a job here too. I got to get through. And he's taking responsibility And I think he carries that through very well in the narrative.
All right, so Stephen, you're pushing back on the question of that we're discussing. You didn't say it, but there's also the theological. That's what I think you're saying about the latter. He's got to carry out God's wishes here, so he's got to get this flock through. So he's got to do it. We'll hold that for next year, but I think that's good. And last comment about Jacob by Rosalie. Let's try to speed up the responses a little bit. Go ahead, Rosalie.
I don't think Jacob really is that changed. Jacob is very interested in Jacob surviving. And Jacob is thinking, okay, I've got to get through this. I've got to make sure that nothing happens because I'm going to make sure that God's promise was true. But he also remembers what he did. But Jacob is a conniver. And I think that what happened that night before, where his thigh was hurt and he was limping, changes everything, because when he appears in front of Esau, he's sort of like he's limping, he's weaker. And he also is able to say, yes, here's all the stuff. And he's sort of saying, yes, I'm really sorry, and let's be friends. But once they say hello and goodbye, they go their separate ways. Jacob has no desire to have anything to do with his brother. So Jacob, the reunion is hello, goodbye. It was nice seeing you, and that's it.
Fair. Okay, cool. 2 in person, 2 on Zoom. What's the point of all the reunions?
To tell your story. To share your story and to share your story and to hear other people's stories, and then you go on and continue your own story, and other people continue their own story.
Okay, so it's an opportunity to flesh out your own existence and your own identity. Does someone on Zoom have? Great, Aviva.
I think it's a resolution that everybody comes to that reunion with something in their mind and they want to resolve it. And once that's resolved, then they're free to go. And sometimes for keeping peace in the house, we are permitted to perhaps be less than truthful.
Great. So we go to a reunion to fix some things, and you also introduced the Jewish term shalom bayit, that we make peace in the home, which means at best there's some compromises. At worst, we have to kind of swallow some things that we really wouldn't want to. Yeah.
Well, these reunions are evolving. If you look at Isaac and Ishmael, and then Jacob and Esau, and then Joseph. First, Isaac and Ishmael, that's a very perfunctory get-together. Abraham has already given gifts to his surviving, the sons he's doing nothing for. So only Isaac and Ishmael come to bury him, and everything has been given to Isaac, but Ishmael shows up. And then that's all. The story ends there. They came for the funeral and they depart. Here we see Jacob and Esau, who come together with much more emotional baggage and much more narration, but then they depart. They don't stay together. By the time we get to Joseph and his brothers, you have the sense of really deep emotion. Joseph is clearly emotional beyond anything that you have the sense from Jacob. And he does actually return with them. He gets in his chariot and he goes back to see Jacob. So that's a different kind of reunion. So they're getting closer. They're getting more intense.
Yeah, these reunions are developing. Joseph forgiving his brothers and then continuing on is really remarkable. And he doesn't do what Jacob does here, even if we trust Jacob. He continues his journey, his story, along with theirs. We have one more. All right, just a quickie.
Esau has a reunion with Jacob, but Jacob is not Jacob anymore. He's Israel. So it's like going to a reunion and meeting somebody you went to school with who's transitioned. You're not talking to the same person. So Jacob has got Israel. He's got to be Israel, and the last thing he does as Jacob is have this sort of reconciliation, though not a deep emotional one. It's just a facade. But Jacob isn't Jacob anymore.
That's good. I mean, in some sense, isn't that why we go? You go to reunions to resolve some things, but also to show up in your Mercedes. You know, any number of things. I mean, yeah. Last comment.
Was he really going to a reunion? That implies, like, I got an invitation and I'm heading there. It was like he couldn't figure out how not to go. The reunion came to him, and and the doorbell kept ringing, and it's like, turn the lights out, don't make a noise. Maybe they'll go away. They won't go away. I got to open the door and talk to these people, and they scare me. And so I that's where the thinking of this in terms of a reunion, even though it's an obvious way to label it, doesn't resonate for me. And the notion of the generosity and sincerity of the gifts doesn't resonate for me either, because they're not sincere. They're a strategy, and they're a good strategy, but it's different. It's how we're labeling it to make it make sense.
Wonderful. I love that. Last comment, all right, we'll pull it there because I know Martha wanted it. I saw your hand. We'll turn it over. Leave it at that. Next year, we'll look at the second half of the sheet. Notice there's two different blessings of Jacob that are the exact same. But thank you, everybody. Thank you on Zoom.
Thanks so much. Yasher Koach. Let's rise for the conclusion of the service with Aleinu.
Aleinu ve'akol.
What page? 205. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latei kedula liotzer breshit shelo asan kegoyei haratzot velo samanu kemishbachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkeinu kahem v'god aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא שנוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ.
I don't have that book at home. They have it.
ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
This morning, we remember Lena Bobinski, Alexander Freilich, Irene Harris, Linda Harris, and Ulti Lieberman. During the coming week, we remember Milt Fergatch, Eva Goldman, Ann Kroll, Neil Rosenfeld, Blanche Winston, Edna Zoller, Alex B. Cohen, Joseph Golb, William W. Goldberg, Meyer Weiner, Irving F. Amstatter, Samuel Golden, Florence Kaplan, Helen Middledorf, Emil Wolf, Lester Ehrenberg, Linnea Cutler, Leo Goldstein, Barney Krukoff, Elsie Orlinsky, Herbert William Parks, Fanny Weiss, Berthold Weiland, Charlotte Holtzberg, Emmy Lowenson, Jacob Lurie, Irene Robbins, Samuel M. Robineau, Hyman A. Shankman, Ross Humans, Isaac D. Bobinski, Louis Ginsberg, Fred Glick, Jack Goldman, Louis Morris, Rose H. Morris, and Rosa Schoen. All those observing yahrzeit and reciting Kaddish. Please turn to Mortar's Kaddish on page 207 in the Lev Shalem, and page 51, I think. Page 51 in the Nas 7 Nishma Sidur. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah. V'yamad divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedech al Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam ilmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yatadar v'yatalev v'yatalal shemei dekudusha b'richu. Le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata da'miran b'elma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom. I thought that was really terrific. It was great to hear from the people on Zoom. It was great to talk about the Torah portion. I look forward to doing this again, personally. Just one announcement. There's flyers on the table outside the sanctuary, and there also was information in the newsletter about the JUF Tikkun Olam program, Nourishing Our Neighbors, collecting winter gear for those in need. There'll be a drop-off pickup on Sunday, December 5th at St. Paul and the Redeemer Church, 50th and Dorchester. So please, either after Shabbat, scan the QR code on here, or go to the website, or go to your newsletter, find out what we're supposed to collect and bring, and please help our neighbors. Shabbat shalom. Yes, Sarah.
Sisterhood Hanukkah Fair tomorrow.
Sisterhood Hanukkah Fair tomorrow. We're going to continue it through all of Hanukkah because you might run out of candles in the midst of Hanukkah or need a new menorah. So it's here. There are beautiful things, not just Hanukkah, but things for all of the Jewish holidays. So please do come and partake.
And it looks beautiful too. So Shabbat Shalom. Let's conclude our service with Adon Olam. I believe we have a little bit of coffee in the atrium today. The next retreat, page 211. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra, Le'ei Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra, Ve'acharei Kichrot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora, Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Omer, Ve'hu Yeh, Ve'hu Yeh, V'tifara. Ve'hu Echad, Ve'hu Echad, Ve'en Sheni, Lehamshilo, Lehachmira, Veli Heshit, Veli Tachlit, Velo Ha'od, Ve'ha'misra, Ve'hu Evi V'chai Go'ali, Ve'tzor Chavli Be'etzah, Ve'hu Nisi Adon, Afkid Rupi, Be'et Ishan Ve'ayira, Ve'im Rupi, Yavi Akid, Adon Aziz, Elohira, Adon Olam Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa V'chetoko, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Yasher Koach to all of you. Shabbat Shalom to all of you at home. Come back next week. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Thanks to all.
Yeah,
Shabbat
thank
shalom.
you. It was a great service. Be well. Take care.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.